Martini Shot, a podcast production of nanticoSTUDIOS. I'm Sarah.
And my name is Jordyn. And...
Hello! And I'm their guest, Akima. I'm excited to be here tonight.
Akima, we're so stoked to have you. You are the official first guest on the Martini Shot podcast. Couldn't be more happy that it's you. I mean, we've only known you for a very short time, but it's been so fun, and I'm just so happy that we have a chance to talk with you. And I mean, I can't, to be honest with you, Akima, like I was talking with Sarah earlier, I can't even wrap my head around all the things that you're doing and involved in. And so I'm actually looking forward to a moment where are going to sit there and you're like, yes, here's the 75 things I'm currently doing. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can contextualize it better.
I'm trying really hard not to squeal in your ear because I'm just like, we'll break it down. I don't even know what I'm doing most of the time, so it's fine. It's fine.
What a great way to start off with our first guest too. Something that we're all about is local filmmaking, and Akima is a proud advocate for that in our state of Delaware. So I just want to thank you for doing what you do. I mean, we'll get into what you do exactly soon, but I just want to thank you for all your hard work that you've put into making the state of Delaware just a little bit more into the film scene.
I appreciate you for thanking me, but I thank both of you for all of your energy and your commitment and your passion in making it happen. So it doesn't happen without everybody. So I'm excited, and I thank you both for what you've done so far, and looking forward to what we do next.
I guess to start off, I think the most appropriate thing is, Akima, can you just introduce yourself to the people? Tell us who you are, what you're all about. And that's how vague I'm going to leave it.
That's how, yes. So prepare for me to take up the next hour. No, I'm kidding. So I'm a frustrated comedian. I missed my first calling. So basically, I am Akima Brown. I'm a filmmaker, an advocate, and a nonprofit founder. I have a passion for work-life balance in the film industry, and I think the reason that that spills over into what I do here in terms of Delaware and bringing it home is that I want to be able to work close to where I live, and I want to be able to do the work that I love. And I want to be able to I want to see my kid at night. that's lots of conversations around that right now in the industry, and I'll leave that there, involved in those too. But just really wanting to sort of be able to do the work I love, be around the people I love, be in a place that I love. And so Delaware is quickly becoming home. I've been here less than 3 years. And, that's everything that my nonprofit stands for as well, working with families and parents, caregivers who work in the film industry, and really just kind of creating a better work-life balance and figuring out what that looks like. So try to implement that on my films as well. So I am a filmmaker. I would love to make some things here in Delaware if anyone's out there listening in the ethos. Sooner rather than later, that would be great. Just wrapped up, but no, I did. I just wrapped a short in Georgia a couple of months ago, and we were, striving for 10-hour days and making sure that we had ethical practice. Everybody was, we followed all the COVID protocols, but it was also about family protocols and making sure that we created a structure that allowed for people, take a break, got to talk to your kid or something's happening at home, and just figuring out how to be a bit more holistic in the filmmaking practice. So that's really kind of my whole thing. I'm a mom. I am a parent and caregiver. So that's kind of, I think, why it's always on my purview. I like my family.
They're cool. They're cool. What got you into film in the first place? How long have you been in the industry? I know vaguely that you've kind of been all around, so I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Okay, awesome. So I actually have been film adjacent all of my life. I started off, I auditioned for a few commercials, didn't actually get any roles. But when I was a teenager, I have, done student films for as long as I can remember. But it was after I graduated from college, and my friends then started to, I think I dragged them into it somehow.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, they started to work on films, and they were, pitching to different networks and cable shows. And so they said, love to have you come on and, kind of help me build out the story or, assess this, analyze, do things like that. So that's kind of how I got my foot in. And then once I found out that I was going to actually be a mom, which is not what most people do when they find this out, I was like, yeah, no more being an educator, no more research. I'm gonna go do the thing I love. I'm gonna go make films. And so I
Yeah.
actually went back to film school. Yeah, that was a very interesting time. But I decided I was going back to film school, and I got to work on my first feature film and get my first professional credit before I graduated. And the rest, that was history. Like I've been operating under that ever since. Like just took that first credit and kept leveraging it for more. So yeah,
No, that's awesome.
I have lived everywhere. I've worked in Georgia, New York. I would typically go wherever the work was, and that really worked for me for a while because my son, I was homeschooling. It was very fluid. We do whatever works, but as my family members are starting to get older, I kind of want to be more stationary and structured, and so Delaware has kind of become it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that, to be honest. But I'm kind of, Delaware is, I can't even say it's growing on me. I'm here. I'm here at this point.
You're not the first person. As someone who was born and raised and, was in Delaware till I went to college, when I left Delaware the first time, I was like, I'm never coming back. And I've come back several times. So I get it.
Where are you now, Jordyn?
Uh, I'm actually in Delaware this very second because I might have some plans at a Firefly Music Festival this weekend. So I was like, Mom, Dad, can I come stay? So yes, I'm actually in my not necessarily my childhood bedroom, but the bedroom in which I stay when I come home. So that's where we are.
Yes.
um, but my real place of residence and where my office is in Philly, so it's close enough to Delaware. It's a hop, skip, and a jump. But Akima, when you're when you're working on projects, like in what capacity do you find yourself working in it? Like a lot, I know when we talked last, I feel like you were really into pre-production work, or what? I guess silly to say, what hats do you wear? Because it's like, let me pick one out of the 75. But I guess
Yes.
what capacity do you work?
For me, I define myself as a writer first and foremost.
Cool.
Like that is really, I am a storyteller. I am a world builder. I love the writing. And then from there, I would definitely say a producer. Like the way my brain works, I just, as Jordyn, you can attest, I'm like pieces. Can we put them together any kind of way? What do we do with these? So how do we make them work? How do we optimize everything? So that those two are the primary ones. I've never directed anything. I hope to one day, but writer producer is definitely, if you start asking me what do I do? I have done casting, I've done post-production, I've done story producer, like I've done all these different things, but you ask me, what do you do? Writer producer.
There you go. I like that. It's hard to particularly when you have so many interests and you're passionate about so many things. It's hard to label yourself because you feel like you're putting yourself in a box you don't necessarily want to be in. So I understand.
Yes, I love that people are like multi-hyphenate because it just encompasses everything. So I will use that term, especially when I'm on a project like I just was on. It's like, so multi-hyphenate creator, because everything. What do you need? Like lead PA. It doesn't even matter. Like this is everything. But do it all. So yeah.
Cool. What can you give us a little hint about the short you were working on in Georgia, or is that like too soon?
I sure can. Nope, I can actually talk about that, thankfully now. So the project is actually part of a fellowship, and it's intended to amplify diversification in the film and television industry. And so I am one of 6 Black producers who was brought on to tell a story around education in America. And so I chose to tell the story of servicing special needs students during the pandemic. And it was an interesting story to tell and interesting to put together. And I got to work with some great, amazing people. And so my hope is that it will serve as a proof of concept for something a bit longer. And of course, I'm like, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, Delaware. So maybe I can do that at home. Who knows, right? So yeah.
Oh, that'd be sick. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, once again, I know you just wrapped, but like, do we have anything when it comes to like a potential release situation, or is that like way too early to call?
So a little too early to call. All I can say is that the fellowship directors also serve as the executive producers, so they're handling all of, in terms of release and distribution. But there will be screenings, and my hope is to sort of get Delaware in there a little bit.
Yes. Well, you do realize you now have to let us know when the screenings anywhere that's like remotely close to us because we
Yeah,
need to
I'll be the
all.
first one in line.
Thank you so much. I would look. You have no idea. I would love to see that. No, I have asked because the fellowship program is in New York. I'm based in Delaware, and then we shot in Georgia. So I was like, yeah, typical me, all over the place. But I'm hoping that what I'll be able to do is have some kind of either a local screening or a virtual screening where I can bring on some of the Delaware filmmakers who've expressed an interest in making things here, so we can say, all right, this is the project we might want to, try to push and see what happens. So.
Oh, that'd be so sick.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I just love it. To be honest, we could talk shop for like 45 years and I'd be okay with it because it's just so fun to just talk about what, when you have your friends and what projects are you working on. And that's one of the, even with Sarah, I know we'd like meet to talk about the projects that we're working on, but it usually turns into what else are you doing? Like, like we could just sit back and talk about this forever. But I mean, it's interesting to me, but who knows? That was good. But you're talking about, once again, not a lot of people come to Delaware when they don't already have some type of like family or things. What brought you from your world travels to Delaware to establish a home base?
Family.
Hey, there it is.
That'll do it. Family. That'll do it every single time. Yeah, our family just is slowly migrating from all of these other places to Delaware, and so I found myself here, and I came with the intent of like, all right, I'll help you guys set up and do this, and then I'm gone, and I was like, oh, I kind of like it here, kind of like that. That's nice. Well, this is different. Well, and one day I woke up and was like, I'm home. Okay, all right, copy, got it. Sounds good. So yeah.
No, see, I love to hear it though, because like I feel like I spend a lot of my energy trying to convince other people how great Delaware is. And I'm like, yes, I know I don't currently live there, but it's because it's hard, professionally for what I'm trying to get into. It's hard to find those opportunities, but I'm obsessed with Delaware, particularly Southern Delaware, where Sarah and I are from. But we'll give love to the North as well. No,
Yes.
but
We appreciate it. I'm central right now, but I kind of have an affinity for the North. We had this conversation.
So my next question would have to be then, now that you're in Delaware, mostly for family reasons, what brought you to the office/political advocate side of the film industry?
Oh, that is such a great question. So it's not something that's new to me here in Delaware, actually. I have always been quasi-political, I guess you could say. I've always sort of paid attention to social justice and kind of had a social consciousness. And I've always felt like policy really does determine how things move. I've always felt that. And so I've always been very involved in politics. I studied political science in undergrad, was very big in like, galvanizing and that kind of stuff. So um, in Georgia during the gubernatorial elections, I was involved with a collective of individuals that created Vote Georgia Film, and basically filmmakers putting on PSAs and commercials and putting together these short promos to basically promote voting, because a lot of times you have a transient population in the film industry that is like, oh yeah, well, I live in Louisiana but I'm working here in Georgia, and it's like, yeah, but you've been here for 4 years, so maybe get a driver's license and register to vote. Those were the kinds of things that I've just kind of always been involved in. Same thing when I was in Virginia. I was very active with the Virginia Production Alliance and sort of looking at, how do we repackage incentives, things like that. So when I came to Delaware, and I immediately, the first thing I did was I looked for, what is the local production alliance or collective? Who are those people? Where do they exist? Where's the commission, the film office? What is the state-based entity that kind of propels the film industry here in Delaware? And when I didn't quite find it, the first thing I thought of was, okay, what do people do? And where are these people? And how do I find them? How do I become friends with them? Because I have to work. So how do you find work? And the more that I dug and I delved in, the more I learned that there was a sort of gap between the policy and the execution of that policy.
Mm.
And that's just kind of my wheelhouse. Like that's the place that I've always sort of dwelled. And it was like, so bridging that gap between what you said and what we're doing, what does that look like? And so just been in there ever since. And that's how the Friends of Delaware Film was born. I know I jumped ahead a bit. Yeah, that's how that whole thing, for anyone who doesn't know about Friends of Delaware Film, an awesome collective of just phenomenal filmmakers local to Delaware who are looking to create an actual ecosphere and make film production part of the creative economy here. And again, that goes back to policy. So,
And outside of that, because correct me if I'm wrong, but Real Families for Change, that's only a year old. Is that correct? Or
that is correct.
so it was through that. So is that then a COVID start? Like, I'm trying to do a timeline here.
Somewhat. So
Okay,
it
cool.
wasn't that it started because of COVID. So it came about as a result of several of us who, the 5 founding members of the organization, we had worked together before under an initiative that was looking to bring together mothers in the filmmaking industry. And so we had started having conversations about, all of us are moms, all of us are filmmakers. We have producers, we have editors, we've got costume designers, set designers, buyers. And so we were already looking at how do we improve the work-life balance scope for mothers. But as we started to have these conversations and hold these meetings, we would find that there were single dads who had questions, or we would find that there were individuals who were caretakers. And that's kind of where my heart goes out, because parents are a protected class, but caretakers often are not. And so we just started to really look at, well, how do we sort of bring that together? And the organization we were working with, they shuttered during COVID. So we were kind of like, okay, the show must go on. This needs to continue. And so I sort of said, okay, here's what I'm willing to do. Like, I'm in Delaware, which is a great space for, incorporating. Let's get this done. And and Real Families for Change was born. And so between all of us, we pulled together the logo and the website and, the slogans and all those different things. And we said, okay, so it's not only mothers, but it's parents, it's caregivers, it's guardians, it's looking at the whole family structure. And then even as we started to do that, we found there were people who said, I want to participate because I would like to have a family someday, or, I want to be married, or I want to have a partnership, a relationship. I want to have children someday. I need this to get better. And so we've been working that way ever since. And as far as us being a COVID story, we've done a lot with regard to virtual. Like, a lot of our initiatives have been virtual. So surveys go out, emails go out. We're actually this year, in our second year, going to try to recreate the community structure that we all kind of came from. This is how we all came together, with monthly meetings and things like that, to bring people together around the other programs and initiatives. But a lot of virtual outreach, a lot of Slack communication, a lot of Zoom calls. But it works for us because that's actually what we would like to see more of the industry do. We want to see more job sharing. We want to see, where when you job share, you can bear the load a bit better. That everything doesn't fall on one person. If there are parts of a job that can be, split up and redistributed to ensure that people actually have the time and space to get that done and still live life. Flex time, remote work, childcare subsidies, things like that. So we've been very, 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 very aware of COVID. We've also been looking at how do we ensure that people are staying in the workforce. That's been a big deal. Once COVID hit and we found that there were a lot of people who were displaced as a result of production closures, we found that going back to work meant you haven't done anything for months and now you're in need of childcare. So what we would do is we've created a child care grant. Well, it's really a dependent care grant because we do find that caretakers have similar issues, but often are not eligible for child care support. So we've created these grants that allow for them to be able to actually subsidize the cost of their care and be able to return to work. So
Yeah.
we're trying to pay attention to COVID and where it's going and try to stay a little bit ahead of the game, a little ahead of the curve there. Not always successful by a long shot, but we try.
Now, is Real Families for Change involved in any sort of way with things that are happening in Hollywood right now with the what's the current the proper would be International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees,
IATSE.
IATSE.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, IATSE.
Yes.
So yes and no. In that we do have a number of our members who are members of IATSE, and we have actually been partnering with the individuals from IA Stories and Brick Crew Stories, and just a number of the other entities that are sort of focused on that particularly. And what we're trying to do is work with them to acknowledge the solidarity for those who are non-union members, because their current negotiations and their potential strike authorization actually has the potential to change the scope of things for those who are not in the union as well.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to bear down on that and make that a focus. As someone who's not in the union, again, these are things I just kind of think about those who may not necessarily have certain protections or coverages and might be exposed to certain toxicity, if you will, because they don't have those protections. We actually also conducted a study. It was a sustainability study, and we did it over the course of a couple of months. And we got a couple hundred people who did reply. And what we found was, in terms of work-life balance, there are a number of people who are like, we need a universal plan in the industry. Like, the industry right now is the wild, wild west. Everyone kind of makes it up on each production, and every production gets to figure it out. And so we're looking to take the information that we got from those stats, along with the stories that are coming out of IA, along with the conversations around the negotiations, and figure out how do we streamline this so that potentially in the future moving forward, we have a way to say, okay, this is systemized. Like, we have a genuine universal plan when you go into production to ensure there's going to be rest periods. There's going to be, a minimum rest period before your next call, before turnaround. There's going to be reasonable accommodations. OSHA compliances are going to be followed. Like, just the laundry list, the gamut. So we're not directly involved and partnered. We do have some meetings coming up with some folks from IATSE just to kind of get an idea of, if there is a way for us to officially partner on a larger scale. But yeah, right now we're just kind of standing in solidarity with those who are looking to make a change.
Yeah. I'm definitely excited to see where this heads, and hopefully in a positive direction, because I I've, suddenly been learning all this information at once about what's been happening, and I would love to um, see some change as well. So I'm really excited that you guys are invested in the lives of filmmakers, and the fact that you believe that filmmakers have lives, believe it or not. So,
Yes, I one of the things I talk about all the time, and someone somewhere is going to hear this and go, "Oh God," because I say it all the time, which is essentially it's a value issue. It really is a value issue. There are a lot of people who think that because we get to do this work, if you will, that it's a choice.
Retweet.
Yes, and I say all the time, we get to do this work, but don't forget it work. It's not, we get to go on this vacation. That's not what we get to do this work. It is work. It's paid work, which means that it should be paid a living wage. It is work, which means that we need to take into account that there needs to be rest, that there needs to be balance, that we need to actually value and respect the individuals doing that work. And the fact that we are now looking at, and I think this is really where some of that nudge kind of comes in, and that dig is that we're looking at the fact that during a pandemic, streaming service is really how people got by. So that work actually helped people to stay sane and to stay grounded and to stay informed all throughout a global pandemic. But then you don't value that work at the same level that you do anyone else. And no, it's not brain surgery. And no, we're not, curing cancer and things like that or putting out fires. But we also have to take into account the social emotional component of the work that we do. We also have to take into account the fact that there is a very real impact that arts and culture has on our communities and on our development and on our families and all that. So there are elements that because we've learned to kind of dismiss it and devalue it, that we kind of say, oh, well, because if you want to work in this industry, then you can be treated like crap and it's fine because you chose it. And versus, why would you treat another human being that way?
Mm-hmm.
That says more about you than it does about the person who chose to work in this field. So yeah, it's definitely something we're invested in. I'm losing my earpieces.
No.
I'm getting all emphatic and my hands around. But yeah, it's definitely something that we take very seriously, and we are a hearts and minds mission kind of organization where we definitely do the practical work and we definitely put in the time and we're vested, but we recognize that the war we're trying to win is the war of hearts. And, it really is about changing people's perspective and changing their feelings. Yeah, I got into an IG war the other day with a guy around this, and I don't know if he actually, changed his mind, but I know he went away. Everyone else he responded to after I was done, it was like, where'd he go? So I don't know. I'm hoping that meant, in my head, I want to believe that meant that he took the time to, step back and ponder on what I said, and maybe it made some kind of a dent. But it was basically around exactly that. He basically dismissed someone and said, that's how you feel. And I was like, well, real quick.
Let me just.
Why aren't feelings enough?
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why have we dismissed that? That's important. And so it was a whole lot longer than that because he said some really other mean and ugly things to people. But that's really what it comes down to. That's where the investment, I think, for us comes in, is we want to see that shift because we it's just human value. It really is. It's just human value and decency and respect across the board for workers who are choosing to work in a creative space.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I think because that's even something personally that I've struggled with in the past. It's like I shouldn't complain about this 50, 60 plus hour work week because I got to do what I love, and so I think that I wasn't aware of what the implications of that kind of mindset until fairly recently. And it's like, because exactly it. I was like, I'm not, I don't have this, like, my twin sister's a pharmacist. So she, particularly now in COVID, she's having really tough emotional situations and choices. And I'm like, well, how can I complain about when human lives aren't dependent on the choices I make, but still, like, to your point, it's about value. And I think that's a great, if there's one thing to kind of ground it in, that's a beautiful way to put it in a way that's like accessible to, like, it's not about, it's not apples to apples. It's about value. And so anyway, I think that's beautiful. And this is actually the first time I've really have heard from you about your nonprofit and what you guys are working towards. And that's particularly to bring up Sarah's question in light of what's happening right now in Hollywood. Absolutely. I don't know if fascinating is the word, but it's great to know there's people like you and the people that are in this organization and others that are taking it by the helm, and really surging forward on this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm grateful to work with the people I'm working with on this. Like, there are some really dedicated people, like, round the clock, constantly, staying on top of this stuff. So it's I'm in good company, and I am humbled daily by the people who just that reach out or that are like, hey, can you help us with this? I'm like, yes. So yeah.
So we've talked about a little bit of your first organization, Real Families for Change, which focuses obviously on the livelihoods and the well-being of filmmakers and their families. In contrast to that, you're also in another organization, or at least you started it, and it's been exciting to help be a part of it as a small production, trying to make it in Delaware and in small states. But talk about the Friends of Delaware Filmmaking Group, where you obviously advocate for filmmaking in Delaware.
Absolutely. So yeah, Friends of Delaware Film, it is an informal collective of concerned citizens who want to see film production take off in Delaware. And so, as I had mentioned before, my foremost goal, anytime I go anywhere, I want to be able to work. I want to work close to home. I want to be near my family, doing what I love, near the people I love. And so when I came to Delaware, that's the first thing that I looked for. That's the very first thing that I went out, and sought. And what I found was that there was no central hub of communication for filmmakers in the Delaware state, so throughout the state. And so I just started reaching out. I just started like, okay, so what is this? And I remember, and it's very interesting, I remember very distinctly because I went and looked up Delaware Film Commission. There was an article, Lights Action Delaware, and I believe it was in Delaware Online. I might be misquoting that. But I got super excited because I saw where the governor, the previous governor had just signed the commission into statute, and it was, effective, and all these things. And so when I couldn't find the commission, I started to look into, well, what division is this commission housed under? And then I found that, and they went, it's not here. And so, okay, so where is it? And just kept going. And Paul Wiegraf, who is now retired from the Delaware Division of the Arts, he actually said, well, this is interesting because I don't know that anyone has actually asked this question. Like, this is odd. And I said, well, can you maybe help me find other filmmakers? Like, can you help me with this? And so they basically started to put me in touch with some of their previous filmmaking fellows, and they put me in touch with a couple of production houses. And so I just started talking to folks, and basically I came to the same consensus, which was, so there's no central space. So you all are saying the same exact thing, but not to each other because there's no central space. Hey, Paul, what would it take to get everybody in the same room? And he's like, sending an invitation, and that was that. So we had a Delaware Filmmakers Night, and what we did was we put that together under the it basically became an extension of the artist grant. So I asked Paul, what would it take for us to get everybody in the same room? And he said, to schedule it. So that's what we did. And it basically ended up coming on the tail end of the Artist Opportunity Grant. So Roxanne wait, nope, wrong Roxanne. Oh, I'm gonna say her last name wrong. I'm so sorry, Roxanne. You know I love you. It's after 8 o'clock at night. But Roxanne is the program coordinator for the DDA, and she basically put together this incredible program and talked about the Artist Opportunity Grant. And then she turned it over to me, and I just basically said, "Hey, we're all here. We're all filmmakers. We all have a desire to make films. Let's help each other out." So a bunch of people were interested. They signed up. We have a listserv that is on Electric Embers, and I feel like that link needs to be shortened as I'm saying, and I'm realizing that I probably should have created like a tiny URL for that.
Or the person who's running the Instagram account can make a better LinkedIn bio so that then they can just click on
I like that idea a lot. I really do.
I'll talk to the
But
person
yeah,
on the Instagram account.
thank you. I appreciate that. She's wonderful, by the way.
Bye.
But yeah, we have this wonderful listserv that allows for people to sign up, and we can share information with one another. There's now a holding website. I won't say it's an official website, but it's a holding website, friendsofdelaware.com. And that basically is a space for people to learn a little bit about what we do, but also to help build the assets here in Delaware. So as we are making a case for what's possible, we also need to be able to actually see what's possible. So there's a space for people to click on a Google form that will allow them to input information about crew if they know someone or are someone who is a filmmaker in Delaware and they want to sign up, or if they know of locations for filming. And so there's a form there that will actually allow them to fill it out, put in pictures, descriptions, things like that. And then we can begin to kind of create a library and a directory on the site in order to make those things happen. As well as we just reached out to a few counties, and hopefully we'll have some information to put on Yay Sussex, by the way. Just gonna
Exactly. I'm so happy. Yes.
I know you were thinking it. We reached out to a few counties about, just their special permits and permitting processes and what those look like. And, we're still waiting to hear back from a few, but we're like, hey, how can filmmakers actually figure out what to do? And Sussex just kind of had it down. They're like, yeah, we'll put a special little box and do like this, and all right, we're done. I was just like, oh, that's all right then. But what we are looking at is actually creating some kind of a streamline for Newcastle and Kent in order to sort of make sure that when filmmakers come to get a special permit, there will be something there that kind of helps them and guides them through the actual process when it's a film versus just a special event, a live event, or a temporary space rental. And so we're hoping to have all of those things on the site and build the site out and make it more dynamic over time. But yeah, the goal really is just to have this collective exist to sort of say, hey, this is how film can really plug into Delaware and into the creative economy in Delaware, because I think that's going to be really big, especially as we're talking about COVID. Really, really big in recovery. Creative economy is kind of what's making the rebuild possible in so many places. So come on, Delaware.
Something that I like you've said, I feel like a lot, but when the first time I heard it, I was like, that's a great phrase. I would love for you to speak a little bit, because you talk a lot about creating a film ecosphere in Delaware, and I would love to hear you kind of talk about what that means to you.
It's so much in my head. Basically, creating the film ecosphere, the long and short of it is that in an ecosphere, there are all of these different elements and habitats and habitants that rely on one another, right? And if anything is out of balance, it kind of comes out of whack. It all comes undone. And so creating a film ecosphere is essentially looking at the fact that we don't just want to bring productions into Delaware, and we don't just want to have productions that are created in Delaware. We don't just want festivals. We don't just want shorts. We don't just want features. We don't just want television. It really is creating this sort of comprehensive, symbiotic relationship throughout the film industry, but based in Delaware, that allows for a fluid pipeline and all of it relies on each other. So you have students who are training and they're learning the craft in school. And then whether prior to graduation or right after, there will then be opportunities for them to hone that craft and work professionally, either as an apprentice or a paid professional, which then gives them hours, which allows them to be union repped, which then, so it's like this whole thing. But then you also have productions coming in that are making that possible. You also have local filmmakers that are making that possible. You have studio-based stuff going on. You've got indie stuff going on. It's like, it's an entire process that relies on everything within it and around it to really be able to thrive. And on top of that, again, it's a small, even in that ecosphere, then it's still a part of that greater, wider whole, which is the creative economy. And that creative economy is part of the larger capital economy, which then is part of the larger whole of all Delaware. So it's like, here's this thing that plays its part, but all of its parts have to be working together. So that's kind of the ecosphere component of it, as opposed to just, yeah, let's make movies. It's like, no. It's got to be a fully comprehensive whole in order to really thrive and work well.
Absolutely. And honestly, Akima, I remember, so how we first met, well, I'll say met because it was back in like early summer. I was in contact with a woman trying to get a boom up for a project we were working on. And then we were in conversation. She's like, "Oh, have you heard about this Friends of Delaware Film thing or film group?" And I was like, no, it sounds like everything I want to be part of and more. Like, send me the information." And so I'm not, like, in full disclosure, I remember going to the first Zoom meeting a little bit apprehensive and skeptical because I'm like, I've been to these meetings before. I know what happens here. And then when Akima Brown came on screen to talk about, like, when she took the reins, and it was like to your when it comes to like creating the creator economy, let's try that again, the creative economy, as well as this film ecosphere. I've always been so impressed and continue to be so impressed by your vision and your scope, because whereas I'm just a selfish filmmaker. Like, I don't care. I just want to be able to like live and work in Delaware. Like, that's been my like tunnel focus. And to hear like, no, this is, in order for this to happen, all these other things also have to happen. And better than that, this now is serving such a vast population for this greater vision, like in a collective. And I was like, oh shoot, I never had this perspective before. So that's something that's like, so it's so fun to hear you talk about your vision, and also the vision for and to have that, once again, that perspective and the ability to, even though you're it's not, you're accustomed to being boots on the ground, getting your hands dirty, writing, producing, and all the other things. But the fact that you're able to do that, but also once again have that perspective to see how we all work in this is such an encouragement. So I'm the, like, Sarah and I are like the founding members of the Akima Brown fan club. So
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've never had a fan club like that. Yeah.
We're making buttons right now. It's fine. No, it's good.
Yep.
Seriously, I know I've said it before, but I do. I appreciate you both, because it doesn't happen without people who say, "Oh yeah, I agree with this." I could be somewhere standing on a soapbox and saying all these things, and it's like, that lady. But to have people who see it and who agree with it, and who, again, who see the value in it, and see not just what is right now, but also what's possible, and because this is the key, and are willing to take the necessary steps to bring it forth. Anyone can say, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea," but to say, "Yeah, that's a great idea, and what can I do?" Like, that is where my heart goes out to both of you, and where I'm always just like, I am so grateful for the people who have come together around this thing, because everyone is in. It's not just like, "Hey, it's the Akima Brown show." It's like, no, everybody is in. And how many times have I asked for a random meeting at the last minute, like, "Hey, can you come tomorrow? Because this thing just shifted. Help." And people are right there, and they're on the call, and they're vested, and they're present. And so that means the most to me. So I just wanted to say again, thank you both.
Ah,
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
we've talked a lot about your career, your organizations, and the commissions you're a part of, and your groups. And I'm going to be selfish again as a selfish Delaware-born filmmaker and bring it back to Delaware. What is Akima Brown's rather hope for the future of filmmaking in Delaware? What do you want to see?
Oh, yes. Okay. My hope for the future of Delaware filmmaking. I so and this is going to sound so cliche and corny. I want to see Delaware be the best Delaware that it can be. Like, I want Delaware not to try to emulate anywhere else. I don't want Delaware to be the next anything. I want Delaware to be Delaware. So is that, Delaware leveraging the fact that it is, one of the top performing healthcare, conglomerates in the country, and utilizing that in terms of how we, navigate through COVID. Awesome. Is it that we look at how we can get into, OTA and OTP space where we're, saying, hey, it's not just the production of content, but it's also the distribution of that content. Like, okay, cool. Like, what is Delaware's thing? What is that's what I want. I want Delaware to find its thing. I want Delaware to own its thing. And then I want Delaware to build its thing. Like, that's what I want for Delaware film.
My God, that's this campaign slogan right
Yeah.
there.
Ooh.
I'm like getting
Well
all like
said.
fired up. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's incredible. Akima, wow, that's what a great wow, okay. Sorry, a little lost for words. Really happens. But Akima, no, I definitely want to like turn the tables around to you though. If there's anything that we've talked about a lot of things, but I want to give you an opportunity. If there's something that we haven't asked you about specifically that you wanted to use this platform to talk about.
I think I would love to speak to, and it still pertains to, Friends of Delaware Film. But I'd love to speak to what is possible with respect to where we are right now with like rebuilding the commission, and leveraging government support in that. And we kind of talked about this a little bit, like with the letter and that validation of the film industry. I think right now we do have this sort of, again, we talked about this a little bit, but we have this sort of film production, serious film, if you will, serious film versus film festivals. And it's not an either or, right? It's both and. And I think that when people hear about film in Delaware right now, they think about the festivals, they think about the nonprofit film programs that go on throughout the state. And there really isn't an understanding of for-profit creative economy and film in that space. That's something I'd love to.
There was somebody out there that was interested in getting involved in Friends of Delaware Film in some capacity, whether they're filmmakers or whether they're just passionate about supporting artists, whatever it is. What would be, besides just, following the Instagram, getting on the listserv, attending the meetings, things like that, what's the need now?
So our need right now as Friends of Delaware Film is really rebuilding our film commission and determining what the purpose of that commission is going to be. In my opinion, the commission really has a great opportunity to sort of bridge a gap and create a central space for filmmakers, and whether that be commercial filmmakers who are working on film production, narrative film, documentary, things of that nature, or even the film festivals that are here in the state. I think that what we really need are people who are willing to come on and sort of volunteer in an advisory capacity to let our government officials know this is what's possible, this is what's here, this is where we are. If there are any economists out there listening, I know that we do have several throughout the state who have worked on a number of nonprofit initiatives. helping them to sort of quantify in terms of industry support and things like that. We need to know what's possible here in Delaware and what does that look like. And we need people who are willing to come on board to help us with that. And, that may look like volunteer hours. It might look like support. It might look like, fundraising or campaigning. But we definitely need to bridge that gap between what currently exists, which is very much a nonprofit filmmaking presence in Delaware, and leveraging that to expand what is possible for a for-profit creative economy. But we need the commission to be fully functional in order for that to happen.
And if there was somebody out there that that checked one or all of those boxes, what's the best way for them to do that? Is it joining the listserv? Is it contacting you directly? How do people, serve in that capacity? What's the first step?
Oh, the very first step, if you would like to email us at hello@friendsofdefilm.com, by all means, you can email us there. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter on those same handles at Friends of DE Film. You can find us on Facebook, same thing. We have a group. We have a page, Friends of Delaware Film. So by all means, look us up and get connected. Send a direct message. Send a ping. Join the group. Follow us on Instagram. Leave it. But definitely, please reach out and connect, because this is such a pivotal and critical mission. And again, it's not simply film. It's the entire creative economy. It's really looking at that whole ecosphere and how we all work together. And this is one small part. And so if you work in live action entertainment, if you work in, musical theater, if you work in music productions, there's the Firefly Festival that's, coming up. That's going to be ginormous. Like, if you're involved in that and you have any idea of how creative economy has been successful in Delaware thus far, and can kind of aid and guide those of us trying to build a new sector, because that's really all it is, of that creative economy, then by all means, please reach out. Let us know. Like, we're here to learn as much as do. So,
Wow, well said.
Yeah, once again, well said. Like that, touche. Akima, thank you so much for taking the time out of your crazy busy, I have no idea how you eat, sleep, and operate the schedule to sit down with us and talk about you and all the things and all the projects that you are involved in. Couldn't be more appreciative, and also of the insight you provided us as well.
No, thank you both for having me. I enjoyed this thoroughly, and hopefully we'll get to do it again in a little bit, and we'll be talking about this created economy.
Hey, absolutely.
I love that. I support that.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's episode, our 6th episode of Martini Shot.
To take a look at what we're working on, casting calls, newsletters, and more, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at nantico, and our website, which is www.nanti.co. Also, you can find us on YouTube and TikTok. Catch us next week.